Welcome back everyone to another episode of All About Mechanics. Today is Black Drake Villa. This is quite a fun dungeon, lots and lots of secrets and a hard mode for every single one. But just like the rest of the videos, we are going to use one tank, one healer, one stamina DPS and one magic DPS so that no rolls are left out. Now of course there's lots and lots of nasty ad pulls, these very basic ones here you're going to see throughout, but there are some really big ones that do teach you some mechanics for the future. As you can see here, it helps to do the same stuff as you usually do as a tank, pull stuff in, turn it away, don't let the group get smacked by it. But here is where you get the hard stuff straight away. You have got a Minotaur there. If you've played Falkreath Hold, you know they hit very, very hard. Make sure that the tank turns it away from the group and hits the block button at the right time, otherwise they're in trouble, and watch out for the charge. In the meantime, the Salamander, or Basilisk, or whatever you want to call it in the middle there, that was our primary target and should be, because they are engulfed in flame, a big aura around them, and if they go anywhere near the Minotaur, they will actually buff it. It will have bigger resistances, and it will hit really, really hard. Now, Zos has a habit of giving you breadcrumb mechanics. As you can see here, we've got another one. What I mean by that is generally they teach you the mechanic on an ad or during the dungeon that you're going to need to understand in order to beat one of the bosses, or maybe all of the bosses. So that's a very relevant mechanic to pay attention to for the boss that is coming up after this massive ad pull here. Now, of course, again, the Minotaur, you have to turn it away from the group. Make sure nobody stands in front of it because it'll hurt. He does pound the ground and put nasty AoEs on the floor, so you have to make sure that you do step out of those or just have plenty of heals and pray. Now, the first secret is how you unlock all of them, because if you don't do the first one, none of them will work. So we have to stand on a pad each. As you can see here, I'm standing on one, and in a moment you'll see me on the map showing you where the rest of the players are. There are actually 4 here. Each one that you press will then activate the whole thing and open up the floor where the boss is going to be. And as you can see here, there are several different spots that we're standing in. The one in the middle there needs to go there. So we've got Claw running across the arena at the moment to try and figure out where he is, but that's where he's going to run to. Now, these will also open up an option to have a buff for you and your group. Now, if you pick it up, it's going to be a platform, a white platform or a grey platform, whichever you want to assume it is. And you'll have like an icy aura on it, and you can pick up a synergy. We'll see that a little bit later on, but that is something that's going to be with you for the rest of the dungeon as long as you open up this first secret. As you can see there, we've opened it up, and now we go over to here and jump in this trapdoor. That will stay locked if you don't hit those pads first of all. You must hit them all at the same time. Now, there are 3 different areas for this. This is the first one, and basically you go downstairs, you hit a button on this statue or wall. There's basically an activation switch there, and when you press it, the boss will come out of the floor. Now, there are 3 different bosses, and they are all very, very important because they all have their own unique mechanics. You need to understand them the first time so that when you see them again, yes, you will see them again, you know what to expect. Now, if you've done March of Sacrifices, this first one's going to be very, very familiar to you. This is basically an Indrik, and much like Tarsi in March of Sacrifices, the mechanics are relatively the same. Darts around the room, there's some nasty mind blast stuff in front of them. Simple fight. Just make sure that the tank has taunted the boss and you keep it turned away from the group. No DPS or healers should ever stand in front of this thing. That mind blast that it does, which is like a beam, and also the headbutt that will aim towards the tank, but loads and loads of deer or elks will come out and fly at the group. They're nasty knockdowns, they're nasty hits, they can wipe you quite quickly. So keep it simple, turn it away from the group, and everybody just hit the boss in the back. If you do stay in front of it too long, the group is going to end up dead. So be very, very careful. Now, once this is over, more breadcrumbs, yes, you can see here that we got given a buff. Now, there are 3 major buffs. They all affect your damage output, your survival, your recovery, as in health and all that kind of stuff. But, as you saw there, we picked up 2 wisps with the synergy. Now, each player can see different ones. Some of you can see the same one, some of you can't. There's the platform I was talking about. And you need 25 each before the end of the dungeon. Technically, there are 30 each to pick up, but you only need 25 each, or you need to find between you the equivalent of 100 together. So if one of you's got 23, another one's got 27, the rest have got 25, you're fine. But either way, you need 25 each, or 100 combined to make it work. So keep an eye on those, look for them, and the first ones, this area here, after the boss, you'll go into a trapdoor. We'll get to that in a moment, obviously, but before you go down there, make sure you have 10. If you look at my bar at the bottom there, or you can look in your character sheet, you can see the wisps. They're in a blue circle kind of thing. When it goes up to 10, that's when you're safe to go down there. Prior to that, you missed some. There are checkpoints further on through the dungeon, but just bear that in mind. Now, as you can see, the other guys in the group are running around trying to pick up their wisps. This can take some time, or you might get lucky and find them right away. But once you've got what you need downstairs, you then come up to here. Yes, there can be wisps either side. Yes, there's a big synergy over there. Yes, you should definitely use it. Now remember, these basilisk or salamander type enemies must not touch the minotaurs. And if they do, then of course, they will buff them. But here is another major mechanic here. If you are in ice from that synergy, and you bring the basilisk in and heavy attack it, instead of it being turned into fire, it will be turned into ice, which will weaken all the surrounding enemies and increase your DPS on them. So that's very, very important. You can use them to debuff the enemies rather than buff them. Also, while you are in this form, you'll have one synergy that you can use, which you saw a moment ago, will freeze the whole room. So you can basically heavy attack the salamanders, debuff the enemies, freeze the whole room, and you've got that window of opportunity to just take advantage of a massive, massive nuke. Even if you've got low DPS, your damage goes up because of those mechanics. If you don't get the secrets, you don't get to use that. So it's very, very important that you do. I ran in there because I missed a wisp. I'm now going to go pick up the other one. Obviously, that's very important. Do not miss these. You do need 100 combined at the end. The reason for that is there's another boss. You don't have to do it, but you can if you want to. Anyway, now we're going to go on to the first boss, which is pretty tough unless you follow your mechanics. And again, we're going to make sure that we teach you these very specifically. And we do introduce the ice mechanic, which I just showed you very briefly a moment ago, where you turn into a massive icicle. Now, each member in the group can use that synergy, but it is on a cooldown, and everyone has their own individual cooldown. So once you've picked it up once, someone else can get the next one, and so on and so forth. Yes, you can just run at it and go pick it up, or you could time it in your group and use it at opportune moments to take advantage of the boss's mechanics. So, the heavy attack from the boss does hit very, very hard. If you're a big chunky tank, of course you can block it. If not, dodge roll it, but just make sure you time it very well. The rest of the time you want to turn it away from the group. Do not aim that monitor at the group because he does have frontal AoE attacks, and everyone needs to watch their feet very, very carefully. On the non-hard mode, you don't get anywhere near as many stacking mechanics, and there is a volcano that comes out of the ground, or a geyser, that you don't have on non-hard mode. And also there are less basilisks or salamanders, and there's also a lot less chaos, basically. It's quite straightforward. It's basically just heavy attacks and move out of the trouble. But this is a bit trickier. On hard mode, he does this, of course. This is his first mechanic. You've got 3 hits that he will do on both modes, hard mode and non-hard mode. Heavy attack there from the tank, has to block it. And then, of course, there's a banner that he will make come out of the ground, which you need to get rid of because it will fire off nasty direct hits at the group. In the meantime, the boss just hit the ground there, and you can see Bob is standing in the geyser. That doesn't happen on non-hard mode, but it does here. He has to stand in it and block it. If he doesn't, the group is going to get killed. Now, as you can see there, Claude just went and grabbed the ice synergy. We're waiting for the basilisk to come in, or the salamanders. He's going to pop that heavy attack, debuff the boss, and now we can hit him really, really hard. You can stun the bosses with that mechanic. It gives you a massive window of opportunity. So it's very, very important that you do utilize this. That's only one. We are halfway through the fight, and we've got 3 more to pick up. So as long as you always heavy attack those salamanders, the boss is going to be weak. If you don't heavy attack them while you're in ice, they're going to stay on fire. He's going to hit incredibly hard. The tank doesn't stand a bloody chance. So be very careful. As you can see there, he did pound into the ground, and chains came up from underneath him. That's a mechanic from Bloodroot Forge, much like the geyser that he did a moment ago, where he will channel and pin someone to the ground. You must interrupt this mechanic. It's very, very important. So if he channels anything, you have to interrupt him, especially that one. The other channel to look out for is when he throws his axe, which is already gone. If you throw the axe across the room, he's going to be just hand to hand. There it is. There's the interrupt. And that will hurt you a lot. Don't get caught by that. You must make sure you interrupt it. As you can see, the fight is quite straightforward. There's 3 major hits. Then he hits the tank with a heavy attack. He'll try and do the geysers. He'll try and do that mechanic there where he needs interrupting. And he'll throw his axe around and drop the banners. Apart from that, it's just manage the salamanders. Just keep them away from the boss when they're on fire, and heavy attack them to the boss when you're on ice. That's it. Yes, it can feel very chaotic, but if you do utilize those synergies and the special secret bonus there, it does help a lot. One thing to mention, by the way, if you are in ice and you do use the wisps that are around the room, because they are in the fight as well, which you can pick up to contribute to your stacks, then of course you will actually spawn a frozen Banekin, and that will help you in the fight. Again, very simple mechanics. Hold the boss still. Don't get caught by the heavy attacks as the tank. Watch your feet. Block the geyser if it comes up as the tank, and always interrupt the boss, whether he's channeling with his arms out or channeling trying to pin someone to the ground. In the meantime, above all, always kill the banner and always kill the salamanders if they're on fire. If they're not on fire, use them with the ice mechanic, because if you heavy attack them, the boss will be very, very weak. It looked like we did a massive nuke there. Actually, a very large proportion of that was due to utilizing that ice mechanic. Without it, it takes a lot longer, even if you've got really high DPS, because you're just doing your standard damage, what you would normally do in a group. That bonus makes a big difference. Now, at the top there, you can see the guys are going to pick up some wisps. I've already got 10, so I'm going to wait at the door. Once you've got 10, you can go down. If you don't have 10 here, go look for them. You missed some. Again, I know it's a little bit manic when it happens that fast, because we did have all the mechanics in place and we did get the ice going the whole time. But salamanders are primary if they're on fire. They must be heavy attacked if you are ice. Make sure they're near the boss when you do that. He'll be in trouble. Now, lots and lots of ad pulls, new enemies being introduced. We've got these doggies to deal with. They will be in a boss fight coming up shortly. So again, breadcrumbs mechanics, get used to them. They've got nasty heavy attacks, but they can be CC'd, so don't worry, the tank can pull them in. Pulls like this, you want to make sure obviously the tank pulls everything together and turns them away from the group as much as possible. Failing that, just keep your eyes open for interrupts on range targets, because it can be quite nasty. Any pulls that have two-handers or sword and boards, anything like that, the tank needs to prioritize those, because they tend to be the ones that knock the group down and stun them, while the range stuff kills them. This is very important. This is also useful for this mechanic here. Pick up the ice, which you can only get from the secrets, run back downstairs. Yes, you can freeze whole ad pulls, but these ghosts that are now coming down, you cannot actually taunt them. They cannot be taunted, so they'll hit who they want. But if you hit that synergy, bam, they die. So you don't even have to sit there and fight them. Just get their attention, run downstairs with the synergy, and pop it. That is useful in some of the later pulls, and actually saves a lot of time. It's very tricky when new tanks don't realize that they can't be aggroed, because then people start running around the room because they've been hit instead. Either side of the room here, we've got two levers. Both people on both sides have to do it at the same time. Obviously, this side synchronized, other side synchronized with themselves. And the sides mirror each other. So this is what you're looking at. There's one platform over there and one over here. So I stand on one, my teammate on the other stands there, and this lights up and you pick up a synergy. Little orb there. The two guys on the other side of the room have done exactly the same. One pad each, hit the synergy, pop it in here. When you do this, the ground will open up. I'm going to teach you something really sneaky. Yes, of course you guessed it, there is a secret boss down there. Much like the last one, we have to open up the door, go downstairs, press the button, spawn the boss. But if you want to make it really quick for yourself, you can do something a little sneaky. What you can do is you can actually time it so that you pick up the synergy, run downstairs while somebody else presses the button, and as the boss spawns, you can actually hit the synergy from the buff that you picked up and stun it. Now, as you may have seen or may be aware of, I'm on cooldown, so I can't actually pick it up, but any of the three other guys in the group can. So what we've done is we've actually told Claw upstairs to wait until we call it. I've called him now to start running. He's picked the synergy up, he's on his way. Now I spawn the boss. Now us downstairs, we're going to start weighing into it, of course, but by the time he gets into the room, he is going to be just about off his timer for the buff and have just enough time to hit the synergy to stun this boss. So if you look in the corner, Claw is running into the room. 3, 2, 1, bang it. Now the boss is completely stuck, debuffed to hell, and we can nuke the hell out of it. Now, it's a short window, but it still counts. It's very nice to have that help. Now, of course, again, you don't have to nuke any of these. The first boss doesn't have a DPS check. The second one doesn't. The last one doesn't. And these mini bosses do not have a DPS check. You can technically take as long as you like. But if you are experienced, or even if you're not, and you want a helping hand, definitely use those ice bonuses and buffs. Definitely take advantage of those inside mechanics, because Other dungeons don't let you stun bosses. This one does. You can use it to res people as well, because if you activate it in range, you'll pick people up. So it's a really helpful bonus. I highly recommend anyone going for any achievements in here. It takes nearly no time at all to do those secrets. Go do them. Of course, if you want to try and be competitive and beat other people's times, you don't have to get them if you don't want to. But here's the thing. 1, there's no leaderboard for that anyway. And 2, are you really saving any time by making it take you longer to kill each boss? Stun them, kill them, move on. Now, of course, we are going on to the second boss very, very soon. But first, we've got some ad pulls. And there is a little bit of a wave kind of mechanic here, where we have lots and lots of different stages of enemies while the boss runs off into the fire. And here, you can do exactly the same thing as before. You can pick up this synergy over here, run into the ad pull, and just freeze the whole room. Reses people if you need to, stuns people, and kills ghosts if they enter. And of course, remember, everyone's on their own individual cooldown, so other people can pick it up after you've finished. And yes, again, remember, if you heavy attack the enemies, stuff will happen. So these ghosts will die instantly normally, but if you are in the ice mode and you haven't actually got the synergy left to use, you can still heavy attack them and turn them into an icicle so they're no longer a threat. There are some very, very nice bonuses from this particular secret buff that you've been given that carries more weight than just that synergy on its own. Learn what each enemy does and utilize it to your advantage as and when you can. So obviously the synergy itself bursts and kill the ghosts. The heavy attack puts them into an icicle or freezes the basilisks and makes you do more damage to bosses or enemies surrounding them. It's really, really helpful. Yes, I know I keep calling them basilisks. There are basilisks and salamanders in the game that have the same bloody name. God knows why, but it's one of those things. As you saw then, big synergy, room cleared. Those enemies can't be taunted. Now, once this is over, we put the fire out, we run through, and of course we're going up to the next area where there's another secret. Before that, obviously, there's going to be a few ads. We do have to deal with those. Again, same process as always. Let the tank go first. And, of course, make sure you turn everything away from the group as much as you can. You don't want to get caught by area of effect frontal attacks from enemies. You don't want to get caught by heavy attacks by stuff. And you certainly don't want to be stunned or heavy attacked while other stuff is hitting you. The tank needs to gain the aggro. Make sure everything is pinned together. And make sure you don't lose anything, because it will really wreck the group. Especially when you get to rooms like this where you've got these horrible spread around the room enemies. And also one more thing that we have forgotten to mention along the way. Keep picking up these wisps. You must keep getting them, and the more you get, the better. You need 25 each, or a combination of up to 100 between you to be able to unlock something at the end. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because this next boss has got a lot of mechanics, and people trip up on this quite a lot by panicking. Do not panic. Maintain your composure as far as your mentality is concerned towards execute, because there is no DPS race. You don't have to go full ham. You can take your time. So when you get that execute panic, stop it. Do not get execute panic. This room's quite nasty, actually. You've got a healer at the back there, and you've got some doggies. Make sure the doggies are pulled in. Up the top there, you can see there are 2 areas with fire, and they've both got an orb hidden behind a cell, if you like. We activate these 2 triggers here and open the door. And we get, again, we split up into 2s if we can actually press the levers together. This is the hardest mechanic in the game, getting people to press the same thing at the same time. Anyway, 2 of us go to the left, 2 of us go to the right. And up here, there are 2 platforms each. So there's one here for one person to stand on. And then there's one at the other side, right at the back. And this is all you have to do. This one is basically a PlayStation control, and you are moving around the statues on the ground, and what you have to do is slot them onto their highlighted spots on the ground. There are 2 different ones, obviously one for one side, one the other. Don't cross them over, it gets really, really messy. And yes, it's on a cooldown. There's like a 2 or 3 second cooldown per button press, so if you keep trying to spam it, you'll just jump. Now, when these are done, they will open up the gate on your side, and there will be an orb inside of that you pick up. Grab this, and just like before, go downstairs and put it in the empty socket. There are 2, there's 1 either side of the door. Now, once this is done, we are going through that doorway, and we are, of course, going to meet the final of the 3 major secret bosses. This is where we introduce this mechanic again, and I will teach you a very tactical way to approach this fight. The other guys have gone downstairs. They've run into the secret room. Bob is going to be by the button. I'm literally waiting for him to get there. Once he's there, I'm going to tell him to press it when I think I'm close enough. So I'm going to grab the synergy. I only have a few seconds to do this. So I pick it up and run like hell. Here we go. Run, 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 run. You only have a short period of time to do this. In total, you have about 25 seconds to be able to get downstairs with this particular buff. So as long as I've still got a timer on me by the time I get there, as long as I've activated the boss and we're not sitting there waiting for it to spawn, I can use it. So the boss is now literally entering the room. Run in, hit the synergy, drop your ultis on it, and it's game over. Now, there are some basic mechanics to this. Obviously, keep it turned away from the group at all times. It has got some nasty attacks in frontal AoE, and of course some basic individual attacks that will hit the tank. This channel mechanic here, which you're not going to see for very long, that's where the heavy heals need to come in, because it's a constant damage channel to everyone in the group. Really, really hurts. But also watch your feet. Sometimes he does stomp and put ice AoEs on the ground. Just keep your feet out of those and you'll be fine. Remember, your key focus here, after the boss is dead, pick up those wisps. You must have them. Don't miss any out. Now, at this point, if you've got around 17 or so wisps, you should be absolutely fine, because there are still plenty more to get. There are enough left in the dungeon for you to get to 25 each, but if you're much lower than that, go back and go look for them because you missed some. This boss can be quite scatty, but focus and pay very close attention to what's going on. You will have some ads in the room, yes. You will have some nasty heavy attacks to deal with as a tank, yes, but don't run around the room like a headless chicken. She will teleport from time to time, but it doesn't mean you have to run around in circles. Just be very aware of what's going on. The surrounding circle around the room is going to have archers occasionally. Those you need to interrupt before they nuke the group. So just make sure, regardless of what's going on with the boss, as a DPS and the healers, you go look for that as soon as that happens. In the meantime, stay behind her. She will do some nasty heavy attacks to the tank and place a pretty hefty bleed on them. But in the same time, they will put lightning stuff behind her and beast traps on the ground. Stay out of the beast traps, stay out of the ice, and of course, yes, as you saw then, we stunned the boss. She will go into the middle and go immune. If you can time it right and hit that ice synergy before she does it, you get a window of opportunity where she doesn't do a damn thing. As you can see here, she's being fairly successfully nuked, but we're not really doing much. It's all because of that ice synergy. It literally weakens the crap out of her and gives you a massive opportunity to put some extra damage on her or some extra pressure. When she goes into the middle, she is immune. An air arrow will spawn out and there will be fire coming from her in the middle of the room as well. Don't get caught by the fire. Make sure the tank grabs the air arrow. Stack it in the middle just in case you kill it while an ultimate is running, because then it will land on the boss. Of course, you have to pay attention to these. These are priority. Archers are priority. Interrupt them, kill them, get back onto the air arch. The air arch does have a lightning channel and a big heavy attack that will hurt the tank. It hits very, very hard. They must block it. But once the Atro is dead, she will wake back up again and you can hit her again. Again, very important note, you must get rid of these archers. If the screen goes grey, you have a debuff on you, you are basically going to take a lot more damage, so be very, very careful. That will rotate through different players throughout the group, so just watch that when it's on you, don't get killed. As you can see here, we're still using the ice synergy. We're stunning the whole room. The dogs come in now, 2 wolves over and over and over throughout the fight after the first immune phase, and we just stunned them in the middle of the room and they all died. This constant ice bonus, take it on rotation. You can take it, then someone else can take it, and so on and so forth. You're all on your own cooldown, so pace it and use it as and when you need to, if you're in trouble or if you just want to go for a bit of a nuke mechanic. Now, there are other things to consider here now that she's out of her first immune phase, as well as her long range attack and her heavy attack, which she does a bit of a jump for, which she is stuck in motion there because Bob just throws the hell out of her. That you've got to watch out for. The tank needs to block it. Also, she will have a channeled, or not so much channel, but a long swing cleave in front of her. It's a double cleave, if you like. It's a cone effect once, then it's a cone effect again. The first one will hit fairly hard. The second one will apply a massive bleed. So make sure you keep heals on the tank. You can dodge roll it, but sometimes it's not worth making the extra mess because this room is quite mobile fight-wise anyway. Again, keep it on the archers, watch out for the beast traps, watch out for the fire. When she's immune, focus the air atronach. Again, if you want to put it into the middle of the room, you can, just in case it dies as your ultimates are still running, and then you can put some extra damage on the boss. Essentially, there is no DPS check in here. You can take as long as you want on the atronach, because the boss won't come out until that's dead. You can take as long as you want on the archers, as long as you interrupt them. Although they're very low health anyway, they don't take much to kill them. And the dogs, although they're very, very weak, just make sure that they are pinned or chained in, and they don't cause much of a problem anyway. If you do let them go loose, they will kill the group, granted. But if you can control them, it's quite straightforward. It looks more dangerous than it actually is. You'll be surprised how much of the room can actually be calmed down by just understanding each individual mechanic as you go. Just be very, very careful as a tank not to lose the big stuff. Keep the boss, keep the air Atronach, because if you let either of them go, the group are dead. Again, finally, and I can't stress this enough, have some form of coordination and control, or a plan, if you like, a strategy, when it comes to picking up the ice synergies. Again, as soon as she came out of her immunity phase, we actually used it again, and we're making a habit of that. As soon as the dogs spawn, freeze her. The whole room is calm, you can do whatever you need to do. It's not a long duration buff, no, but it does help a lot. And when you are trying to go for speed runs, hard modes, and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it really, really helps to have these secrets. I wouldn't, again, encourage people not to pick them up. Also, these wisps, yes, we need them. If you pick them up in the fight, great, it adds to your stack. If you pick them up while you're in ice, then you get a Banekin to help you. So just remember that too. You have a little pet to help you in the fight. Tricky to track, but it helps. Again, you can see most of this fight, apart from running around killing ads, is her frozen while we hit her. In fact, if you wanted to apply that strategy, you can actually just go around killing ads all day, leaving her alone, and then just only hit her when you freeze her. How you approach this fight is up to you. There is no DPS check, and as you can see, my ice synergy is available again, which is great. Now, we're going to go outside, because we are trying to chase the last boss through this dungeon, and he keeps running away from us. So you have to watch out. Because much like Marcelok, where he keeps running away and then adding new mechanics to try and stop you, he's doing it here as well. This guy is actually going to introduce some new enemies to us, which we do need to understand in order to beat the last boss. Because if you don't know what they do, you're going to die. It's going to be really, really tricky if you don't follow some very basic mechanics for these individual giants that you're going to go up against. So here, this isn't actually important. You can just run down the corridor and go and kill everything. But we thought we'd add a little bit of fun since we did this on the secret bosses anyway. We've made one of our group go and pick up the ice synergy. And they're now going to come helling out that door at full speed to go and pin every single mud crab out there. This is overkill. It's not necessary. Go Bob, kill him. Look at that. Absolutely hilarious. Everything's stunned. Just spin to win. Everything's going to die. Not a chance. However, just bear in mind, that mud crab pull there, if the tank doesn't go first, although they're really tiny, can actually kill a group. So be careful. Don't underestimate the mud crabs. We've got 3 or 4 major pulls up here. They're all spread out with very different enemies. This first one is your general minions, sword and board, two-hander, mage type enemies. Just stack them up and burn them down. Or just turn them away from the group and take your time, whichever's better for you. And then the next one's a little bit trickier, because we've got the salamanders and we've got the troll. So honestly, just get your tank, put everything together, grab this synergy and freeze them. You've seen how this works before. Pop that, nothing's going to move. Now you've got that window of opportunity. Even now the tank can just start grabbing stuff because maybe some taunts weren't applied. When everything's frozen, you've got all the time in the world. It's very, very helpful. Again, if you don't have the synergy, of course you cannot do that. You have to focus more on making sure you maintain your taunts and chains and pin and stuff and all that good stuff. But, I said stuff twice, good job. But if you don't have them, you are going to make it more difficult for yourself when doing the other achievements. And just bear in mind, you don't have to do hard mode speedrun no death without the secrets. You can use them. This little geyser mechanic on the right there that you saw, we're going to get to that in a moment. That is also another breadcrumb mechanic where the developers are teaching you something that you are going to have to use. Now, we have been looking around for the wisps. Currently, I'm sitting on 24. So I technically only need 1 more. And if the rest of the group have the same, we're all good. That's going to be more relevant after the last boss. But there are going to be way more than that. I'm actually going to hit about 29, I think. If I find the 5th one out here, 25th one out here, then, of course, that means there's 5 in the last boss. If I don't, doesn't matter. There's still enough in there for me to pick it up. This pull here, you know what these do. If you had your synergy, you can freeze those ghosts and just blow them up in 1 hit. Failing that, stack them up. If you do have aggro off the ghosts, bring it in towards the tank. No, they can't taunt it, but it does help to stack it with the rest of the stuff. To make sure your healer's on point and make sure you block anything that looks aggressive or heavy. When we go up to the stairs, this is where the new enemies are involved. these big flaming, I don't know what they're called, behemoths, there you go. Those things, they're nasty. They have a very, very big heavy attack. If you stand in front of that and you're not a DPS or a healer, you're dead. But if you do this, you can stun them. And there is also something else to notice. If you use your heavy attacks on certain enemies with that ice synergy bonus, stuff will happen, won't it? Well, in here, those go out. They're on fire. If you heavy attack them, the fire will go out, so they don't carry the area of effect damage over time anymore. So that's also very, very useful and relieves some pressure off your healer. If you do your synergy and freeze them, or you heavy attack them, that will apply. At the moment, as you can see, once they come out of the ice, they don't have it anymore. But if you do heavy attack it, it's gone. They can't do it. Turn them away from the group. Don't stand in front of them as a healer or a DPS. Now, the last fight on hard mode is actually very, very similar to the regular. The difference is, overall, the most impactful difference is there are loads and loads of statues around the room, like dragons, looking inwards. Every single one of those at any point in time could breathe fire. Don't get caught. If you do get caught, you're dead. On non-hard mode, that doesn't happen. As you can see here around the room, you see all these snake heads or dragon heads. You'll see those in the main arena at the end. Watch out for them. As long as you keep eyes on them, you're good. Anyway, we're going to activate the hard mode, of course. And just like the rest of them, you can use the ice buff. You can freeze the last boss and or its mechanics. Here is the first phase. This is where you basically are just face to face with him, beating him up. So the tank should turn it away from the group, and the group should try and hit him. That's pretty straightforward. The boss does fire out a nasty heavy attack, and also some breath mechanics there that you can see. And also, as you can see, a salamander came in, and then there was a symbol underneath my feet, and there was one on the ground. All you have to do is line those up. When this happens, the big fire mechanic, don't even try and stand in it. I don't care how big your tank is, get out. But yes, as you saw, you can freeze it. So now we've got a window of opportunity. Now, during this phase, it will go backwards and forwards, much like the Vaults of Madness. There'll be a big circle in the middle that you get out of, but there'll be a big circle on the outside that you have to get into. Whichever one it is, as you can see now, outside is danger, inside is safe. Pay attention to that and you'll be fine. Make sure that he's turned away from the group, and of course, as you can see, this guy is now in here, and you have to deal with him. Make sure he's turned away from the group. Put your main focus on the ad, not the boss. Like I said earlier with the flame breaths, look around the edge of the room. Stay away from those. Yes, there are ghosts in the room. What do? Well, we've seen this before. You either kill them, normally, or you hit them with a big ice mechanic. Now, as you saw, they disappeared. That's because the boss hit a certain health percentage threshold. Depending on how well you manage the fight, around 60% or so, he'll heal up and leg it through here. So watch out for the boulders. Make the tank go first. Make sure you maintain a taunt on it before he runs away, if you can time it right. Now we run up to him and do the same as we did outside, except now we're on a ledge. The mechanics are the same, but now we're on a ledge. So what we do is we take the ice, and anytime you want to, you can just activate it. But there are certain points in time where you can take advantage of this, mainly when he jumps across like that. Now, if you go down into the middle there so you don't die to the fire, and pick up or walk into one of these geysers, aiming at him, you'll land in the safe spot. If you hit the synergy on time, then of course you can freeze everyone. However, unfortunately, I fluffed it up and missed it, so we have to do it normally. The boss must be turned away from the group, the ad must be focused, and you have to watch out for the now meteor mechanics being introduced to the room from that ad, so watch out. You can see the flames all around the room, don't get caught by those, and if he does do his nasty, nasty circle of death, you need to get into a corner to get away from it. Here I'm in front of the Dragon's Breath, which is just about safe because it's not on fire. But if it wasn't, then I would have to go slightly to the right and hide in the corner to get away from it, because otherwise you'd have nowhere to go. Ice mechanic here can freeze the room or just kill them. And watch out for this little salamander here, because when you see the circle underneath your feet, you have to find the circle and stand in it. Now, of course, we all do have our own cooldowns, and one of our group members just went and picked up the synergy again. So you can just come back in and freeze the boss, or wait for him to jump across and freeze him where he ends up. Yes, of course, you can kill these salamanders down below, but generally we just run past them. There is an achievement for killing them all, but of course you don't need to as part of the fight if you don't want to. It's just a danger while you're downstairs to give you that little bit of extra stress while you're trying to deal with the rest of the mechanics. Again, main focus must be this ad, and I've got nowhere to go except for this tiny corner, so that is where you want to stand. If you get caught here, stand in that tiny corner, you won't get touched. If you move, you're dead. One more thing to note, the boss does have some rather nasty frontal AoE attacks. He kind of swipes at the tank. You don't want to get caught in that, and that is why we're standing in this kind of semi-triangle formation behind the boss all the time. We've all got our own spots, but at the same time we're not in front of the boss. Here, it's just rinse repeat. If you stun him here, it's very likely, if you've got high damage, that you can actually kill him here. If not, if you fail it, then of course, just carry on, following him around the room. Make sure you aim at the geyser in the direction that his circle of safety is, otherwise you'll land in the dangerous stuff. But that's it. Nothing else changes. You keep him turned away from the group, you stay out of the fire and watch the meteors. You kill the ghosts and the ad when they're around, you jump in the middle when it's dangerous, you jump out when you can. Apart from that, don't stand in flames. The boss is actually very straightforward. It's very chaotic visually, but it's a straightforward fight. Most people don't take very long on this fight at all in comparison to stuff like Fang Lair, because let's face it, Fang Lair is hell. But it's not over yet. As you saw, we were picking up these wisps throughout the entire dungeon. Now, why was that? Well, because the secrets have been completed, and because we have enough wisps each, we can now go around the back of the boss fight room. And we can take a reward. And that reward is, we summon another boss. Now, if you don't do any hard modes, this will be a regular version of the boss. If you do the hard modes, including the hard mode of the last boss that we just did, then this will be a hard mode version. And I would highly recommend that you bring a serious healer for this. He hits incredibly hard, and there's lots and lots of stuff on the floor to pay attention to. So each one of these 4 orbs around us, by the way, will actually light up per player finishing their donation of the wisps, if you like. As you can see there, they're all lit up. Now, once that's done, the boss in the middle of the room appears. And there is a twist to this as well. Not only is he very difficult, the mechanics are straightforward, but he hits hard. Not only is he very difficult, but he also only stays for 5 attempts. So if you fail 5 times, he says goodbye. And you have to come in here all over again to fight him. Don't worry, there is no achievement for doing this. You don't have to have it done. You don't get the hard mode and this done and get an achievement at the same time. As you saw there was a big meteor land on my head. Block it, don't move. Or stay out of the way of the group and block it. You must block either way. Ground-based AoEs here. They're under your feet. Nice little circle to avoid them. Easy peasy. In the meantime, tank has to turn it away from the group. Watch out for the frontal AoEs. And, of course, block the heavy attack. Keep heavy heals on them. Frost Bankins will come into the room. You must kill them. They are a priority target. The boss does not have a DPS check. You can take as long as you like. But you must be careful. Meteor there. Block it. Come back into the group. Easy peasy. Now, when the health goes down to around 65%, sometimes a little bit earlier, the Indrik will come out. We need to deal with this fast. Now, obviously, if you don't have loads of those DPS, you have to deal with it slowly. But in which case, you now need to buff up like hell and make sure the heals are coming. The tank needs to turn both of these away from the group. You have to maintain that block every time the meteor comes in, and you must prioritize the Banekins. If you don't kill the Banekins, people are going to die very, very quickly. If you don't turn that stupid Bambi away from the group, then it's going to mind blast everyone. You saw a moment there, it tried to do it. That really hurts. So pin yourself in a corner like this and make sure you focus that target, not the boss. If you overburn the boss, you're going to end up with another secret ad in the room. Yes, they all come into the fight anyway, but you don't want more than one at a time. Again, once it's dead, focus the Bankins. Now you're going to see a really strange mechanic in a moment where he'll go into the middle of the room, and of course, there'll be loads of very fast-paced whirlwinds going around in circles. You need to run around the room on the edges and not get caught. So quite simply put, stand in this gap here, and don't get blown up or touched by the winds. Once it's gone, get back in again. That will happen multiple times, be aware of it. In the meantime, get behind the boss, and just maintain your DPS, focus, buffs and bonuses, all that stuff, just keep going. Now, this is the second phase because we've gone past the wind and we've gone past one of the secret bosses. There are 2 meteors, as you saw there. That's very important to note. 2 people now have to split up and block. If you don't block, you're dead. Recovering in this fight is almost impossible for some people. Don't put yourself in harm's way on purpose. Maintain your mechanics, what we've got so far, so frontal AoE and blocks for the tank, and of course, blocking meteors and watching your feet for the rest of us. There's the watch your feet mechanic. Remember, your priority target is not the boss. Your priority target is the ads. Always kill the Banekins and always kill the secret boss. As you can see here, once the health starts going down, the boss will channel and summon another boss in the room, which is the Nerid. Now, it was tricky to explain the mechanics at the time because lots was going on, but basically she'll put geysers underneath the ground, which you may or may not have seen in other content. Just watch your feet. She needs to be turned away from the group. You need to watch your feet when she puts the geysers under the ground, and you need to focus her and the Banekins. So Banekins first, her second, boss last. Boss is the last priority in the entire fight. I can't stress that enough. It's not a DPS race. If you've got loads of deeps, great, but make sure they're focused on the correct targets. Otherwise, you will get in trouble. We've got 3 meteors now. We are in trouble if we go too close to each other, so watch out. Everyone has to spread out and block. Now that the second ad is dead, we've only got 1 more remaining secret ad to deal with. Now, you've seen this mechanic before. Get to the edges, run around in the circle, don't get caught, come back in. You're going to rinse, repeat every mechanic over and over and over. The difference is it's going to stagger and get more deadly. So, the meteors are going to end up multiples, the Banekins will end up as multiple, and the room in a bit will get smaller. So be careful. The mechanics technically, apart from that, will not be changing. There is going to be an introduction of a couple of extras at the end, but the rest of the fight is the same. Everything you've seen already, you can deal with, but there are just more of them. So, more meteors, more ads. You can see there, 3, spread out, block, come back in. It's exactly the same as one person getting it. Except there's 3 of you. The mechanic is still there, it's still on the same timer, it's still exactly the same, except now more people have to pull their weight. It staggers and gets more aggressive, much like the Moongrave Fane mechanics, where you have the tether spots and each one starts off as just 1 person and then ends up as 3 or 4. No different in here. You just have to make sure everyone's aware of it. The Ice Atro's in the room. Be very careful of this one. He is probably the most dangerous because of his channeling effect that he's doing there. If you're too far away from the heals, you are dead. Make sure you focus him. Again, block the meteors. I really would encourage lots and lots of barriers in here, and if you want to, everyone can use barrier and you just stagger them. It's entirely up to you, but you're going to need some big heals on this fight, especially when he is in the room. Of course, the quicker you get rid of him, the better it is for everyone, including the tank. But again, if you don't have lots of deeps, doesn't matter as long as you can stay alive. Just focus your basic mechanics. Now, that's the final ad. There are no more, apart from Banekins, in the room. You're not going to deal with any more secret bosses because they're all dead. You've gone through every single one, and you've just got him left. Now, this is where it does get actually very tricky. You need to be very aware of your feet and not panic. Panicking will get you killed. As you saw there, we did get a death. We got lucky, we got to recover, but that was because all the ads are gone. If all the ads are in the room still, you're screwed. You ain't getting no reses in, so be careful. Now, the room is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. As his health goes down, he starts giving us less room to move around in. Now, the dangerous part is that AoE that was going across the front of the room from the tank's perspective is still in the room, but now we've got our own version of it, which comes from side to side to side constantly throughout the fight. So every time it gets near, you've got to look for a gap. In the meantime, focus the Banekins. Now the room is as small as it's ever going to be. This is where it gets really dangerous, because now 4 of us have meteors. You all have to block. If you don't, you're dead. The mechanics from there are actually the same all the way through. Watch out from side to side for a gap in those icicles. Watch out for the Banekins and make sure you focus them, and spread out when the meteors come down. Also watch out obviously for this channeled effect where you have to watch your feet, but that is a very good burn moment because he's not actually hitting you. So watch your feet, block the big stuff, and maintain your mechanics. You must always focus the Banekins first. It's really important. Now, there's no achievement for that at the end. You don't have to do that boss if you don't want to. The ones that count is a hard mode boss prior to that. But if you do this, you will get extra treasure chests here. As you can see, there's actually 3 of them. And if you're lucky enough, you can get that tool or memento, which you can bring in here with you later. Hard mode or non-hard mode, if you open these chests, you've got a chance to get that. And when you activate it, you actually make it so that hidden chests are revealed inside the whole dungeon. So come into the dungeon, activate it, and these blue shiny ones which are unlocked will be available. So you've got to keep your eyes open for them. So hope that helped, hope that wasn't too boring, hope you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular dungeon. It can be a little tricky, but it's not as hard as some of the other ones that we've had in the past. But the main thing that I would encourage you to do is definitely get those secrets first off. If you don't get the first one, obviously you won't get the ice mechanic or bonus, and then it will make all the rest of the fights harder for you. It doesn't take long to do. The first boss is very simple anyway. This will be on the website, of course, in a written guide. And just bear in mind, again, there are no DPS checks on any fights here. How much damage you bring is up to you. It's all about your mechanics. Don't forget to hit the sub button and, of course, the notification bell, just so you know when the new videos are going to go live. And there are plenty more coming. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.